What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. First trading session of the week. Thank God. Weekends are always the longest for me. Don't know about you, but I'm always very excited about Mondays. And today was all right. So the big stock to talk about is OPGN. I don't know what everybody else's strategy is, what everybody else is doing. We like to do the low float volatility play. And essentially, what I'm looking for every single morning is just a spike in short term volatility where I can get in and get out using pattern recognition. OPGN was no different. You'll see me talking about the same style entries over and over and over again. I've got a very, very limited yet multifaceted way that I get into these stocks. I use literally one of three different patterns, which are all a variation of each other. And today was no different. OPGN was the trade of the day, and just wanted to go through it. You can actually see my list of all of the stocks and opportunities that I was watching today, but OPGN was the one that I decided to trade for various reasons. First and foremost, there's somewhat of a catalyst here. There was a price target change to the upside from the high fives into the 7 range. The market seemed to like that short term. Retail traders like me tend to like stuff like that. So there were some traders that piled in and took advantage of the news. The other thing you'll see on the day is that there are only about 14 million shares on this specific stock. Yet today, the volume printed 376 million shares. So I think the math is that the float rotated about 25 times, which means that the entire stock traded once to you, then to you, then to you 25 times over almost. And so there was a lot of upwards pressure put on price. And for me, it really started, excuse me, right down through here at the gap. And this is something that I look for every single morning, and that is a price difference between close and open. And today there was a gap, and we just started to run right out of the gate. So that's always a positive thing for me. And I like to make a note of these things, especially when they pull back, rally, and offer me a secondary pivot point like they did, or this did right through here. What you'll see is that price action ran up, sold off, found a little bit of a floor, rallied a little bit, and then came back down. And that is actually where I decided that I wanted to place my trend line resistance. And so it was very, very simple. At this particular juncture in time, what I'm looking at here is what's referred to as a flag. And so there's a part of the flag where I like to really focus my time and energy on, and that is the apex right down through here. Obviously the tighter it coils, the better, but trendline resistance is the area that I wanted to see break out. What I use as a marker is the last pivot point. So that last pivot point right there was the area that I was using as a marker to get long. You'll also see it's above the VWAP and my 9-day exponential moving average. And right about that time, you'll also see that there's a bottoms up buy signal on the MACD histogram, or on the MACD rather. What happens from there is the volume steps in, and there is a massive surge in demand, moving from the the 275 level, and then capping out all the way at $4. So that leg up right there accounts for a 44% move, and that is the volatility that we're watching. Now, this thing did produce multiple patterns today that could have been traded. Another one was right down through here. It's essentially the same pattern. And what you can see is that that's the leg up right through there. Price action comes down, creates a floor. It's also got what's called VWAP support. And then it really comes down to the breakout of trendline resistance. Trendline resistance breaks out, pulls back. That's what's referred to as a retest. And once that retest was produced with, again, yet another buy signal on the MACD, it then ran from there. What evidently happened at the end of the day was this thing actually double topped, created a head and shoulders pattern with a VWAP support / neckline. And then you can see right through here that actually it double topped and then got very, very long in the tooth, a little bit frothy. And then during that run up, you can actually see that we've got some divergence over here on the MAC. And then what ends up happening is it ends up selling off almost to the exact position where I got on and where I got in. This is a common mistake that a lot of traders make, is they get into really nice positions and they just sort of wait around to see what happens, and they're not making a note of what the technicals are telling them to do. One thing that I've come to understand about stocks is I obviously don't know where they're going. I do know how to manage my risk on these things, but once I'm in, outside of my risk management, I've got zero control on what these things do. And I don't really make a move unless the technicals are telling me a story as to why I should be getting out. So, for example, when you see a nice flag like this producing and price action pops, when it pulls back and it starts to struggle, that's an indicator that you might not necessarily want to stay long this thing. Also, when it starts to make its way back up and it can't produce a new high and there's divergence on the momentum, that again is another story that the stock is telling you, like, hey, listen, it might be time for you to get out of your position. And that's why, for me as a trader, I'm always looking for those first dip buying opportunities on hyper volatile stocks. And that's what happened today on OPGN. And the big thing here was that float rotation. If you go down the line here, you'll see, for example, CHS. This was up 38%. That's nice, but they've got a float of 111 million, while less than 10% of that actually was traded. So that story right there tells you that there isn't the same demand as there is on OPGN. So 15 million share float, 376 million shares traded, which means that there was a float rotation about 25 times. That is an exceptionally bullish sign. And that is the recap on OPGN.